Welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast, presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean. Mac, summer has come and gone. Just kidding. It's still 107 degrees outside. However, talking season is officially here. So that's what we're calling our next couple episodes before we get into August and get into full season previews of each of these ACC teams. We are going to talk ACC. Pretty much that's all we do with the legend today, Josh Pate of the Josh Pate College Football Show. Everyone knows who he is. Find him on YouTube. He has a massive show, and we're so excited to have him on. And Mac, we went deep into some of these teams, and I thought his thoughts, his takes were really interesting as we get ready for ACC kickoff this week.
Yeah, the takes were taken, and I love it. And they sounded pretty educated, and it wasn't just like, I don't like this team. There was reason behind some of his thoughts and reasons why he thinks some teams are going to be really good. So I love this conversation each year with Josh. I think it's really fun just to continue to see how he grows and how his show's just killing it. And it's always great to talk with him. But as you mentioned, it's talking season, and we are here, and I cannot wait for the sound bites that come out of the ACC from these players, these coaches all week long. It's Monday. We got 4 days coming, 3 days coming, that you guys can see. We'll be on the network. I'll be in Charlotte all week long. So if you're around, come say, hey, let's see you. It'll be a good time, and I can't wait to talk with them. But it was great talking with Josh and kind of hearing his thoughts on the ACC going into this year. And some of that, he does his top 20, which you'll hear we'll talk about. Mm-hmm. A lot of ACC teams right on the outside of that. So it'll be fascinating to see kind of these preseason polls as we get the one we use for 8 weeks. Top 25 poll that comes out soon will be fun. Will be fun to see how many teams get their respect and how many teams can keep it, right? If the ACC has a really big weekend, week one, that could be really fun.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time on Clemson. He had Clemson number 1 in his post-spring poll. We spend a lot of time on Miami, Georgia Tech. He has as a top 20 team. Little behind the scenes. We interviewed Coach Key recently. I cannot wait for you guys to hear that. And then we talk Louisville and SMU a good bit as well. And then some other teams as well. Will Bill Belichick work at North Carolina? There's a lot to discuss with Josh. It's not just talking season, though, Eric McLean. It's grilling season.
Come on.
Specifically for you.
That's right. Here's the deal. This is why my peak grilling season really is the month of July and August, summertime, because you would think, it's tailgating, get out there. I don't have the privilege of doing
Mac has
that.
a job.
So, a job loosely. I'm just busy. I'm busy on Saturdays when I would like to, be tailgating with you guys and out and about, but it is a fun time, and we get to throw down. We just hosted our first guests over at our new house, which was really fun. Some great friends of ours here in town, and we had to throw down, and we did some barbecue. I have to admit something right now. This is my first time ever doing a Boston butt, doing like real barbecue, and it was flawless. It went really, really well. You'll hear, we keep referencing these other episodes. You'll see Coach Rhett Lashley reference my guy Meat Church, followed one of his recipes, used his stuff, and it was unbelievable. And of course, you can get all that from Ingles because they have the best meat in town, the best ingredients, and it's the best savings too. They're going to take care of you. So that's one of the most favorite things. If you didn't see it on social media, I'll probably revamp it, post it up, but all thanks to our big friends over at Ingles, KG, no doubt.
Absolutely. Mac, I haven't been doing as much grilling. I've been kind of sitting because
you're more of a baker, right? You're baking right now. It's been a long bake.
I am baking. I'm not using Ingles ingredients necessarily. I'm baking my own thing here, my own little human. But let's get to our great friend Josh Pate. Again, find his show. He's on YouTube. He's everywhere. And he's got thoughts on the ACC. So let's get to Josh Pate.
Did you know that Ingles sells more organics than any other store? Or that they run their own dairy? Or that they only serve USDA choice and prime meat? Did you know that they have more local craft beer than any place else? Or that they have Energy Smart stores? Or that they professionally slice and package imported cheese from Europe? Did you know about their giant international aisle, local farm partnerships, curbside pickup, wine department? Or that they donate 3,956 meals a day to local food banks? Well, now you do. It's all in the bag. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
The Josh Pate. He really does not need an introduction, folks, but we're so excited to have him back on the show. He was on with us last year, which was great, and so we're excited to welcome him back. And Josh, before we get into football season, we have to congratulate you. You've joined the Marriage Club, which is very exciting. So maybe the busiest off season of your life, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I would say I'm looking forward to things settling down once the season starts. And those words have never come out of my mouth. I'm not going to hold my hand up because my ring is in another room somewhere.
Oh, my bad. Hey, sorry.
Don't worry, mine doesn't fit right now, so
Just
we're good.
take my word for it that it's normally there.
That's right. Well, you
It's
can, you know,
fun.
some people get it tattooed on, man, then it's always there. But I heard it hurts, so I don't know if you want to go down that road.
I haven't even gotten concessions on the silicone ring yet, so we're
Understand.
a long way from the tattoo.
You'll get
I
there.
get that. I get
Yeah.
that. Does it feel weird to have on? I know for me, like I hate wearing stuff on my wrists, hands. When I first had that, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know if I can keep this on my finger.
Look, I look in the mirror and like, I think my left arm is sagging a little bit just because of the extra weight. So yes, it feels weird.
The bicep is bigger on this
Feels
side. All of a
heavy.
sudden, it's
Not being
strange.
great for hand cleans, I can tell
That's
you
right.
that.
That's right. I understand that. Well, congratulations. Seriously, it looked beautiful and an amazing time. Congrats on the big 5-star recruit there. But how has summer been, man? You never stop, really. You guys are wide open. Shows rolling. What are you guys into right now?
Man, so we did the spring speaker series. I think we went to 17 campi, plural
Wow.
campus. Yeah, we were all over the place, man. And it's so good because like we're talking, it's basically media day season, and that's the time where everybody thinks, all right, we're about to have a ton of access with coaches, but 3.5 minutes of access is not access. You want to go spend a whole day with Steve Sarkisian or Mario Cristobal or whoever. So it's, man, like spring is such an underrated time to be out on the road if you can do it. Obviously,
Right.
schedule-wise, to be out on the road. That's like, it's so weird because games are games. There's no substitute for Saturdays in the fall. But the spring period has low-key become like my favorite time of year professionally, just because of that dynamic. You can't replicate that in the fall or even in media days.
And
Yeah.
you're saying because it's relaxed, there's, not high state, just the time with, human beings. That's what you're saying?
Especially May, because
Yeah.
in May now, the way the calendar works is the staffs are out on the road. Head coaches are not out on the road. So, like, you're at Alabama. I probably sat in Kalen DeBoer's office 2 hours when we were there.
Wow.
When are you ever? You're not going to get 2
Yeah.
hours the whole year of
Yeah.
stacking up little intermediate times that you meet with guys. But it's the same with Mario. Like, it's the same. I'm trying to think. I wanted to go to Georgia Tech. I'm still trying to make that trip happen. Schedule is conflicted. But, like, I mean, imagine spending 2 hours with Brent Key. Imagine the stories
It's a
Brent
good
Key
time.
gives you
It's a
Oh,
good
yeah.
time.
2 hours. So yeah, that's it's so invaluable, man, to add like depth and layering to the context with which you apply to your craft and the way you understand the why behind programs and behind decisions and the games in the fall. It's hard to make sense of them. And it still is hard to make sense of them, but at least you understand a little bit more of the intricacy and layering because of the access you get in the spring.
Yeah, 2 hours with Brent Key would be a great. We get him for like 30 minutes, and it's probably one of our favorites all year.
2 hours
right.
with Brent Key, Netflix documentary title in
Yes.
2040, 2045.
Yes.
Money.
I'm loving
Money.
that.
Perfect. I'm going to watch that. I want to start here, Josh, and I want to make sure we spend a good bit of time on this team because you've been putting out a lot of stuff about this team. And I just watched another clip that you put out about the Clemson Tigers. And there were a few things you said that I wrote down because I thought it was fascinating. Your post-spring top 20, you had Clemson number 1.
Mm-hmm.
In a recent video, you talked about, this was a great stat, 21 underclassmen with 200 plus snaps last year, most in the country. All those guys are back pretty much. That's crazy. And then the idea of, can Clemson win a national championship again? As you were saying, 9 years from the first one. Would it be the biggest I told you so in the history of sports, college sports? Let's just start there. What are some of your overall thoughts on where the Clemson Tigers are right now?
I mean, okay, like I'm a big baseball fan. So I imagine somewhere in the 90s when the Marlins were an expansion franchise, somewhere in Miami, someone said, watch, this team will win a World Series. That's a bigger I told you so.
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
that person got to do that. But in the grand scheme of college football lately, I don't, again, when we're talking about the depth of layering and understanding of this sport, yeah, you could just watch Clemson win a title and, to the casual like passerby, he may say, well, I mean, big deal. Didn't they win 2 of them before? Yeah, they sure did. It's an entire different galaxy.
Yeah.
As far as college football goes, entire different world. And between that time and this time, people, in some cases, including myself, have looked at Dabo's approach and said, I wish he'd bend 20 degrees. I wish he'd bend a little bit more, have a little bit more flexibility. And He may have bent like 5 degrees, but largely he stuck to his guns. He has a philosophy about how he's got a worldview. He's got values and principles that also extend beyond football, just to his life, that he applies to his program, which is the way any authentic coach should run their program, by the way. And he has adhered to them. And I've always been conflicted, as I told you guys a year ago, because I have maximum appreciation and respect for that. Even as I personally look and I say, man, I wish he'd do this, this, or this. But even if he disagrees with me, it's his program. Anyway, well, what if he wins a title? When people have been, at the very least, as vocal as me, and in many cases way more vocal than me, they just outright taken shots at him. They tried to undermine him personally. And look, Dabo Swinney's, when he's successful, he's not the best at bottling up his emotions. When he's failed, he's not the best at bottling up his emotion, which I also appreciate. I mean, if you're in this sport, you're like a Coke that just gets shaken up every week. It's okay to twist the top every now and then.
He's real. I mean, no one would say he's not.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And people ask for coaches to be real all the time, and they're the first ones to try and take the machete to your shins when you are real.
Exactly.
So if they're hoisting a national championship trophy after the dust settles in Miami, I think is where the title game is this year, can you imagine the look on his face? Now, he's free to say whatever he wants to, but he would be well within his rights to just cut a full Stone Cold Steve Austin promo on all of college football, spike the mic. Don't just drop it. Spike the microphone, and then, ESPN can bill Clemson. And he just walks off. He just walks up the tunnel. He goes Bo Jackson, but he doesn't come back. We just never see him again. He could do all this. Now, it's not a TV show, so it's probably not going to go that way. But he could, and it would be a really, really big story. And, people have developed sort of the habit of anytime you present that, saying, yeah, but Clemson's not going to win a title. Okay, why? I keep asking, why? What is it? What's the hurdle? Where's the Goliath in the room? Goliath lost, by the way. Just biblically,
Come on.
Now. But even if there was a Goliath out there, where's this like insurmountable foe across the landscape of college football? Everyone who's listed in the odds at the top of the boards starting a new quarterback, a bunch of them, I think I saw the top 3 the other day. It may have even been in this Clemson segment. The top 3 on the odds board right now are 82nd or worse in returning production. Not that returning production is the end-all be-all, but in a world of uncertainty, it means something. And Clemson's got a lot of it. And what I had not been able to get past with Clemson lately was their receiver room was nowhere near being comparable to that of which they won titles with. Well, now it is again. So it's not like the program became a poverty program. There were just deficiencies. Well, they filled those tanks again. So I think they're ready to make a run.
Yeah, I love what you bring up there, because I think the big 3 when Clemson's winning at the highest level is elite quarterback play, check, elite wide receiver play, check, and a defensive line that's NFL ready. Check again. They have all 3. And that, I think, is what is so exhilarating about this year when you look at all that coming back. Number 1 in the world in returning production and the things that they have there. Let's stay with Cade Clubnik for a second, because I think he's the best quarterback in the country. I think what we're going to see from him jump-wise, what we did from year 1 to year 2 as a starter, now year 2 to year 3, is going to be insurmountable. I think he's going to check every box and have that full understanding. And he has the weapons around him. What are your expectations for Cade going into this final season at Clemson?
It wouldn't surprise me if everything you just said comes to fruition. From the pole position, like from the starting gate, I would put him as the best quarterback in the country. Look, I was doing a semi-deep dive yesterday as we're recording. I was just watching some random games. I watched the Clemson-South Carolina game. So you would think to yourself, ooh, Clemson lost that one. That probably left a bad taste in your mouth, and you're going to talk Clemson the next day. Well, okay. If we're talking Cade Clubnik, I think a lot of people remember the last play in that game, the tip ball turnover, whatever. Yeah. Dude, some of those throws he made, what you would call 50-50 balls, I don't think are 50-50 balls. Right. Those are like 30-70 balls that not only Clemson makes the play on, but it's not like it was last resort, let's just heave it up. I got 3 guys in my face. It was, I'm doing this intentionally. Mm-hmm. Like I trust those guys to go make a play. So you just try and extrapolate that forward. Okay, everything else being in place, everything else we just talked about being in place, having that kind of talent, and it's not one guy, you've got 3 potential 1,000-yard receiver types that you could see hitting that mark. Not all of them, but like any one of them or maybe 2 of them could do that. You you cannot overestimate or like overstate how important it is in college football to have the kind of guy that when all else fails, you feel comfortable. It's either my guy or it's no guy. Ohio State probably feels that way about Jeremiah Smith, and I'm not saying it's apples to apples, but just in college football, like when you got good personnel elsewhere, to be able to do that with wideouts is phenomenal. If they can just have a threat running the ball and not turn into LSU last year, where you're top 10 passing, 100th rushing, if they can maintain balance, not in terms of statistics, but in terms of a defense's necessity to honor it. Man, that's everything.
Yeah, it really is. And KG, just to double down on the balance thing, balance doesn't mean 50-50, as you just alluded. Balance is if you go a light box, we can check to a run and we can execute at a high level. And I think at a minimum, that's what Clemson will be running the football, KG.
Yeah, the run game is probably the biggest question, I would say. And the other biggest question, because this is kind of what I do, Josh, I'm a little bit of a devil's advocate on this show, sometimes with Eric McLean about our beloved Clemson Tigers. But, some people, we had Pat Forty on, who's a legend in the business. He asked who'd they beat last year. And I said, fair question. I'm in the stands for the Louisville game. It's tragic. I mean, you basically weren't competing with Louisville. You open with LSU. That's going to be a massive game from a brand perspective. The knock on Clemson over the past couple of years has probably been in the big games, they haven't shown up, which is what they were known for during the run, beating Alabama twice, beating the Goliath that was in college football. Does that concern you at all, Josh, that we haven't seen them win that big game? SMU, of course, in the ACC championship, but that big game as of late.
Yeah, you don't get credit for that. You only get the
just
games
the
you
losses.
win. You were just supposed to win. Look, all seriousness, it's a valid point. Okay, so if you believe in the cyclical nature of this sport, we haven't used the term Clemsoning in a long time. But kids who are watching Once Upon a Time, a little over a decade ago, it was just the running narrative that Clemson's a good, solid program, fun home field environment to play on the video game, cool color scheme, colorful head coach, but they won't win the big games. They'll pop a nice 9-win, 10-win season on you, but they'll lose the big games. Well, then they didn't. And what happened is what we just talked about. Quarterback play elevated, receiver play elevated, line of scrimmage play elevated. All right, well, what you can't do is, number one, you can't have seen that already, bonus. But then number two, believe in the cyclical nature of the sport and not believe that could happen again. I truly believe Saban in Alabama warped reality, time, space, and logic for everybody, because he made it seem like it's just supposed to get to cruising altitude. Nowhere else in the history of this sport has that happened. Even for elite programs, even for Alabama under Bryant, much less any other program. It's varying degrees of this. Okay, so what if that's all we're experiencing here, is a little varying degree of that? And my point there is, the Louisville game was that was like a manhood check for the Clemson program last year, more so than any other game to me, because of the nature of the way they beat you. And you're superior in class athletically, and you're by far the second best team on the field that day. And so, I'm thinking to myself, it's a fair criticism, but I could have said that about them in the past, right before they won a national title, or right before they went to a national title game. It's you could rinse and repeat that with a bunch of different teams. You don't do it until you do it. So sometimes it's better to tear the rearview mirror off the bus than to live in the rearview mirror when it comes to trying to, predict what's going to happen in the sport.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and think it is. Things happen for whatever reason. And a big reason, I guess, that I am so confident in them this year is that defense is going to be what it's supposed to be. Now, they made a change, and that was difficult, for Coach Sweeney, I'm sure, because you bring in a guy that you put your name on. You put a lot of trust in, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. I think there's a handful of that, but now you've got a guy, and you've got a couple of guys. This defensive coaching staff is extremely experienced and extremely dynamic in the things that they do. And they've got dudes everywhere. What are your biggest, I guess, pointers or keys that defense will be drastically different this year?
I just hope their ability to – you remember when they were at their best, them and Bama, and when Kirby got to Georgia were the only three teams in the country that were consistently stopping the run with 4. And it made it so hard to put together sustained drives on them because they had the kind of personnel that let you play both ways, whereas everyone else out there is having to choose to play one way or the other. And I just kind of wonder, like going back to that Louisville game and just going back to a couple of times last year where you're running the ball on Clemson with way more efficiency than you should be able to run the ball on them if I got guys like Peter Woods up front. So that to me will be the big indicator because I think everything else works downstream of that. So if they got that defensively, I'll feel good. And the good news about opening with LSU is we don't have to wait too long to find out. Not that that's the edge of a cliff into the world, but we don't have to wait too long.
Yeah, I agree with that, Josh. That's a great point. Okay, let's get to another team on your top 20 here, your post-spring. So I know things may have changed by the time we're getting close to August.
So many games have happened between then and now.
Well, of course. I mean, the portal, things happen.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But you have Miami at 12. Let's just start here. You mentioned you went down and did your spring speaker series with Mario Cristobal. You spent 2 hours with him. I'm assuming you had some of the Cuban coffee, and that got you way up here, because I've had some of that. But what did you learn? Yes. What did you learn hanging out with Mario this spring?
So you guys have spent time with him. For people who haven't, Mario is very, how should I say this, diplomatic on air.
Yes.
I'm not saying he's dishonest. I'm saying he's diplomatic on air. Probably a lot nicer than he even needs to be sometimes on air. He will shoot you straight off air. And he will be brutally honest. And so, a lot of the college football public out there believes this is a guy out of touch with this, or he won't accept that. Dude, I can promise you, if you're criticizing him about something and it's valid, there are like broken mirrors around his house that he's punched already, acknowledging that, and he just can't stand to look at himself for a second. I think they know last year was a good season that should have absolutely been a great season. And it was just inexcusable how poor they were defensively. And look, they knew, man. I remember going down there. They were coming off a bye. They were going into like November, I think, something like that. I went down there to a practice, and to see the state of their defense that late in the season, and to just see how they were having to practice that late in the season was sad. And it's like that LSU season with Jaden Daniels. You just wonder, what could have been with a decent defense with Miami? You wonder what could have been Cam Ward plus a decent defense. You could have won the national title for all we know. So you can't live in the past. I love the guy, Corey Heatherman, they went and got from Minnesota. I guess
is he the scariest looking defensive coordinator you've ever met?
That's what you got to have. Like he's the kind of guy who mirrors the energy that Mario walks around the building with. Like it's so funny. You walk down the hallway if you're side by side with Mario, and there's some staffers that see you coming, and they kind of duck off in a room. They're not ducking me, but it's nice to feel that way for a second. But Heatherman, that's the first thing Mario said about him is, you want to talk about energy. You want to talk about instantly sort of grabbing the room by the throat, and everyone shuts their mouth and listens, and they're almost terrified not to do it the right way. That's what they went and got, and it's just not what they had. Being as respectful as you can, it's not what they had the year before. Now, look, is that on him for making a bad hire? Of course it is. But let's also acknowledge, kind of like with Lincoln Riley, going and getting D'Anton Lynn from across town at USC. If it instantly scales up, you got to credit the other side of the coin there as well. And if they do that, for all the talk about Carson Beck this, Carson Beck that, what if Carson Beck is not good enough to just be relied on to hang 45 like Cam Ward, but he is good enough for 30 a week, and that's all they need because they've scaled up defensively enough. There's just, I really wonder who's catching the ball down there. They have got a lot. I think their top half dozen pass catchers are gone, I think is the number. So they're names we don't know every year that splash on the scene, but that's optional at some places. That's mandatory at Miami this year.
I agree with you. And I think it's the skill. I'm not worried about the skill. I think they have guys. The way they've recruited, the body types, and I'm sure you got to see that. I'm not worried about that. But when it's your turn and the moment is bright, are you ready for those lights? That's what we will find out and what we will see. I think you're spot on with the Carson Beck thing, and that is very important. Quarterback is the most important position in all of sport. But if Miami makes a run, and if Miami makes a deep run in this college football playoff or wins an ACC championship, to me, it's because the lines of scrimmage, offensively and defensively, got to the level that we expect from Mario Cristobal. There's stars everywhere. 4 or 5 stars, NFL, draft picks, all that things and in between on both those lines of scrimmage. But that to me is the biggest thing. Are you with me there, or are you leaning more Carson Beck has to be exceptional?
No. You're dead on the money. I also think that if you hired Mario Cristobal several years ago, the two things you were banking on at worst were he's going to recruit top classes and our offensive line is going to be incredible. Okay, he's recruited top classes, and you go watch their offensive line. I mean, not only have they improved every year, but last year, it's so funny watching Alex Mirabal, who's their O-line coach, who is like a fifth of the size of most of his players, and he's the first one to get in someone's face mask, and everyone's like, yes, sir, yes, sir. But when you're watching their guys like Markel Bell, I think will probably start for them at tackle, who's just like a creature. Looks like he came from another planet. He's one of a few guys that when you stand behind the line of scrimmage with those coaches and watch practice last year, they'll say, hey, look at 70 there 1 year from now. Like that guy, year away. They'll give you really, really good intel, and that's kind of what they've been building towards. Francis Mauigoa's year and having guys around him that can take over games physically, like win a game when your quarterback's 55% completion on any given Saturday. Like be able to win that game instead of just throwing your hands up saying, oh, well.
Exactly. And the O-line, look, we remember how bad it was at Miami before Cristobal got there, so it's obviously been night and day. When you look back at last year, there are a few games in the ACC that changed everything. Syracuse-Miami changed everything for a lot of reasons. If Miami wins that, they're probably in the playoff. If Syracuse doesn't win, Clemson, we're not talking about them like that. The other one that I think, if it goes differently, we're having a whole different conversation in some ways, is Georgia Tech, Georgia.
Yep.
Because that game was epic in so many different ways, and Georgia Tech belonged. They straight up belonged on that field. They had every chance to win it. You have Georgia Tech, number 17, in your post-spring top 20. What is it? Is it partly the Georgia performance? It's obviously Haynes King returning. Why are you high on Georgia Tech?
So I think based on what you said, you agree with me that if we change nothing else other than they win that game in like the 6th overtime or whatever, do you believe a lot of people would have them in the top 20?
100%.
Okay. So I look at it and I say, well, what's the difference? It was a multi-overtime game. There's no difference in your quality of team whether a bounce goes your way in overtime or not. So if I'm projecting forward, I think of you the same way. And I also think, look, they lost the game. If they won the game, whatever the case may be, I don't think you can look at a single program in the country and say over the last 2 years, the fundamental like vibe and identity of the place has changed to reflect that of the leader more than Georgia Tech has.
Right.
And so like I think about having a multi-year starter at quarterback in an era or in a season where that is in very short supply. I think of how SMU went to the ACC championship game last year. So we're in sort of a cycle right now where there aren't a big 1 or big 2 or big 3 in the conference. It's doable. You can get there. And I think the same thing about Texas A&M. You may not be ready to compete for a national title yet, but I look at you and I don't have to guess who you are. I don't have to ask myself, hey, what's the identity of this team going to be this year? And I just also love the fact that with Georgia Tech, I don't know. It seems like there are so many teams that you look at them and you say, all right, if the game goes as scripted, if things stay clean, if everything goes according to plan, Georgia Tech, okay, they'd love for things to go as scripted, but they're also the kind where when 2 of the tires are flat and the door gets dented and they have to roll up their sleeves and like the shirt sleeve is ripped, I trust them. I trust them to get a little dirty and to in a game that goes off the rails, just be the one that when the smoke clears, they're the one who comes bear crawling out and they got cuts and gashes all over their face. But hey, it's Brent Key. He figured out a way to win a game.
The Miami game. That's what it feels like you're describing.
I trust them in that setting. And so any given year, unless you're just far superior to the pack, your season's going to come down to which way did the one-possession games go. And a lot of those one-possession games end up like that. I mean, when it's 24-24 with 6.5 minutes left, everyone's run their plays. Like all the motivation's worn off. Everything's exhausted about the external factors in the game. It's who can crawl out of that thing. And I trust their ability to crawl out of those.
Yeah, you really do. And I think what you said about, identifying with the head coach and taking that on, there is nothing truer than that. I mean, instantly, because it was such a big culture shift, right? Like Coach Collins had to do what he had to do, right? He had to make it cool. He had to get them talked about and known and things of that nature. And then Coach Key's like, well, let's now that that's there, let's get it back to football. Let's get gritty. Let's get hard nosed. And he's done an excellent job. And the way he's built it, very similar to Coach Cristobal, outside or inside out, where you have these lines of scrimmage set and then you have people around them. But I think with Haynes King and Jamal Haynes, that 1-2 punch in the Georgia Tech backfield, as good as any in the entire country, will be really fun to see. We've brought up SMU a ton. Let's dive into the Ponies, because I don't think they were in your top 20. Maybe they were in the top 25. I have to imagine them and Louisville were right there, right? Yep. We don't have to tell that to anybody. Kevin Jennings is back. Coach Lashley is back. They have a bunch of speed on the perimeter. What is your hang up with the Ponies? Why weren't they in that top 20? Or, what are you thinking their output is this year?
Definitely like a 21 to 22, 23 type team. Yeah, so they were, as I remember, they were right there on the periphery. Could just as easily have been 19. My hang up, relatively speaking, is there's a lot of question marks. I don't go as far as to call those weaknesses. There's just a lot of question marks on the two deep.
Which is fair. They lost a lot of guys. They lost a lot of guys.
You layer it. I mean, if we're looking at this like a cake, okay, one of the layers is I got a lot of production to replace. I think that gets masked a little bit by the fact that Jennings returns, which is important, but because the quarterback returns, you're less likely to say, but what about him, and him? Well, you got to do that. And then the second layer is schedule was the best that you could ever hope to obtain last year for them. And we knew that in the preseason. I mean, I remember doing segments in the preseason. I specifically looked at the camera and said, you don't even need to know about SMU's personnel. I just want you to look at this schedule and pretend they're going to be above average. Pretend they're going to be the number 20 team in the country, just like all truth known, they're the 20th best team in the country. The 20th best team in the country probably plays for a conference title with this schedule. And lo and behold, they did. Now, they were probably better than 20th in the country, but the point remained, okay, well, this year it flips a little bit, and I've got more questions. So that doesn't mean, like we talked about earlier, that it's an insurmountable hurdle, but from a preseason standpoint, like from an expectation standpoint, what I don't want to do is just blindly say, well, wherever you left off at the end of last year, that's where I'm going to place you to start the year, because that was always insane in college football. But now that you've got some places out there that are going to have 50 and 55 and 60 new players on their team, some places, I think I was talking to Barry Odom the other day. He said he had more than 70 new players.
Can you imagine that? I mean, that's crazy.
Rich Rodriguez the same way at West Virginia, like 70 plus new players. So anyway, when the landscape looks like that, and that's the norm, you got to do better than just, well, they made the playoffs, so they got to be top 15. Well, no, they don't have to. Just like if you lost 6 games last year, theoretically, you're USC. I could think you're a top 20 squad this year. It's not common, but it could happen.
No, you're right. It's so different year to year these days. And it's interesting because in your QB rankings, you had Haynes King above Kevin Jennings. So I think that makes a lot of sense to put Georgia Tech in there. When you look at kind of the last showing, what KJ did at Penn State, I understand that. And of course, we'll see what KJ's weapons look like. You also had Miller Moss in there, number 5 on your ACC QB rankings. Talk about a duo, Mac. Miller Moss and Isaac Brown at Louisville. That could be really interesting.
Could be really fun.
So were they also kind of on the fringe there too, Josh?
Yes, I think they were also, it may have been like them and SMU back to back. With Miller Moss, it's very important to talk about who he is being paired with, like you just said. But the pairing I think about is just, when's the last time I watched Jeff Brom not get the most out of a quarterback?
Right.
So it's not like Miller Moss is coming from an offensive desert. Like, he's not coming from Iowa. He is coming from USC. I was a believer that he was made to shoulder a lot more of the blame than he deserved last year. They dropped a lot of balls. Offensive line was well below standard. And I think he's a good player. Like the LSU game, you can't pretend that didn't happen last year. There were periods in the Michigan game, which they lost, that I looked at and said, dude, this is a good player. Like, there are good moments there. Okay, well moments, you want to string them together and then they just become who you are. But I trust Jeff Brom to get that out of someone. I mean, I think about Tyler Shuck this time last year. The dude went second round in the draft. Can you
It is
imagine
insane.
projecting
It's
that?
insane.
Just
Yeah.
imagine
At 45 years old.
It's like if Kelly eats an orange and then she tosses it to Eric and says all the juice is out of it, and then okay, he's got a little tighter grip on it, so a few more drops come out of it. But then imagine you tossing the orange after two people have taken a squeeze at it.
Right.
Jeff Brom's the kind of guy who takes it and says, "No, I can work with this.
There's a lot left here. There's a lot
still
left.
some juice in there," and he finds it somehow. So if that's what he does with Miller Moss, and I have no reason to think he won't, then I trust them to get the job done again.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, offensively, they should be good and maybe better, which is kind of crazy to look at, just with the health of the wide receiver unit. Chris Bell, I think, is a dude. Colin Lacey, we had high expectations for him last year. Those two, but then you have the running back core led by Isaac Brown, who was an All-American by a lot of counts for different lists and things that coming out. Duke Watson as well. I mean, that backfield is going to be really sweet. So we'll see. Defensively, I think they take a step back, but just score 40 a game and you'll be fine. This next team, Josh, it was the craziest thing I think anyone could have ever seen in Florida State, winning 2 games last year. Literally the worst season ever for the Florida State Seminoles there. What's the expectation? A little bit of talk in Talkin season, a little bit of excitement for week 1. But what are your thoughts on where the Noles might be this year?
To me, that's the only team that is the new neighbor on the block who is in witness protection, so you can't find anything about their past. You know nothing. So they just moved in next door. This is day one of knowing them. I don't care what they did 2 years ago, because anything they did last year negates what they did 2 years ago in terms of setting a baseline of expectation. They could win 4 games or 9 games this year, and both of the outcomes I would look at and say, that seems about like that's within the range of possibility. So I would you asked expectation, 8 games. Is that fair? I think that's like a fair barometer. Yeah. I just don't like. Someone was saying the other day, "Oh man, Norvell came off a 2-win season, so they've got to get right back into title contention, or he's out." I don't think of it like that at all. I look at
Still a very big buyout, by the way.
Yes, but even if that wasn't the case, really, let's say the buyout was not like the albatross around your decision-making apparatus.
Right.
To me, 2-10, if you survive it, does so much to muddy the water that you can't even see. And so it's like you win 7 games. It's just in the fog of war. You look at that and say, "Oh, well, that's 5-game improvement. Like, I guess we're okay." Are we? Are we? Because the other way to look at that is 2 years ago we should have been in the playoff, and now we're a 7-win team. And you're like,
happy
well,
about
that also makes sense.
I know.
I don't even know how to decide. Like, where do we stand? I don't know. As much as we talk about expectation and we talk about proven production and all this, there's nothing proven about Florida State. Now, I will say this. If you want glass half full, I went down there this spring, and there's no doubt in my mind Mike Norvell believes he made the right moves. Mike Norvell believes in the moves he made, okay? Now, people have believed in things before and been wrong, so that's not like the end-all, be-all, definitive, it's going to happen. But I thought I'd go down there, and, the vibe would be, we're probably a couple of years away. We're still trying to feel our way through it. They were pretty resolute in the decisions they made. They're not sitting there talking about playoff this year. If it happens, great. But they were pretty sure they had gotten the train back up on the rails and, it was fueled up. It's ready to go again. At the same time, you talk about, we were just talking a second ago about, imagine how crazy Tyler Shuck's second-round NFL draft pick would have been as a prediction. Imagine this time last year saying, "Man, I can't wait to see what Malzahn does as the coordinator for Florida State this time a year from now." For that matter, like Tony White at Nebraska.
Right.
Wonder how he's going to do in Tallahassee. What? Is he moving there? Does he have a summer home down there?
Summer house.
There's so much churn, roster-wise and staff-wise. I have no idea. You could follow Florida State athletics every day of your life. How do you do anything other than just blindfold yourself and throw a dart at the board this year?
Well, speaking of that, Josh, speaking of statements you would have never believed, Bill Belichick is the head coach at North Carolina, which is just insane. And they have a standalone game to start the year against TCU, which is going to be great. I think the ratings are going to be outrageous. I don't think you were able to sit down with him, maybe. I mean, he had a busy spring. I'm not sure you were able to be fit in there. But do you have any, what the heck can we expect? Because Mac and I truly have no idea what to expect there.
I don't think it's going to work.
Okay.
I don't have very high expectations for it. I just think one of the laziest takes out there has been Belichick will succeed at North Carolina, and the reason is college football is just like the NFL now. College football is not just like the NFL. Like, at what point the mechanism of the fact that we pay players? Well, that's broad strokes. That's like saying my little niece in preschool art class and Van Gogh were both artists.
Very similar.
Because they painted. Like, I could say that. It's ignorant. Just like the NFL, man, it's just like college football. Well, one of them up until 5 minutes ago had complete unrestricted free agency. And we're still testing that, by the way. We're probing that for weaknesses. One area, you get to draft a guy once per round. The other one, you can go get 25 first-round picks, and that's what makes it sound really attractive. Or you could get none, because in this sport, you have to go convince those kids, and there are thousands of them out there per year. But there are hundreds that there are a few dozen really, that you could really win a championship with. You're going to go tell them, you need to come here and do it instead of Clemson, instead of Georgia, instead of Alabama, instead of Ohio State. So it goes back to this, Kelly, this year and beyond. If your expectation is just for North Carolina to be what they've always been, he can do it. But that's not what I'm picking up. When you pay a guy $10 million a year, what I'm picking up from people is Belichick's the guy that can contend for a playoff spot at North Carolina. Well, I don't think he can. I don't think he's cut out for it. I don't think they fully understand the task at hand. And I got immense respect now. If he's taking an NFL job, if Michael Lombardi, if those guys he has in the front office are taking an NFL job, my mouth is shut because they've proven themselves. They have not proven themselves in college football. And I think as much as people look and say, ooh, Belichick's about to teach a lesson or two to college football, I think college football is about to teach a couple dozen lessons to Bill Belichick and the folks at North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm with that, because at the end of the day, all that experience, all those rings, that's great. If you ain't got the guys on the field, it's a long day. You know, Tom Brady ain't walking through that door. You know what I mean?
Let me say this too. He's older than any three of his players combined.
Right.
Just that matters, man.
It does.
Think about who you're competing against
to
acquire talent. That stuff matters. You cannot tell me that does not matter. You're trying to win in college football for the first time, and you're starting in your early 70s.
Yeah. It's going to be something. This episode was something. Josh, it is always so great to see you. We're excited for this season. I think one of the trends that you kept referencing as we were talking about everything, there is a lot of uncertainty. We don't know much, if anything, this year. And the teams that we do are teams that are probably going to be favored a bunch. It's great to see you, brother. Thank you for your time. Can't wait to see the rest of the year.
I appreciate both of you having me as always.